Hello, hello. Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brock on this special emergency podcast. Bo, we feared the worst, but we were holding out hope that something could turn up better than expected, but unfortunately confirmed by Kyle Odegaard. Kyler Murray has a torn ACL. He's out for the remainder of the season and beyond. Your initial thoughts and takeaways?
Just a brutal, crushing blow to the Arizona Cardinals. Already one of the most trying seasons since 2018, probably even more so with the expectations coming off a playoff appearance. But to see your franchise quarterback who just inked, the massive extension for $230.5 million now with a timetable as far as the shortest time, probably 8 months, but to be safe, probably looking at, 10 to 12 months as far as him getting back and playing for this team again. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a doomsday scenario for this team. What's next for this organization? How do they, what's the path to getting Kyler Murray back onto the playing field and setting him up for success? It's a non-contact injury. We saw it all unfold, the three-yard scramble that he went down untouched, and you knew exactly that we've seen it far too often in this league in the NFL where that doesn't bode well, and it's exactly what everybody's worst fears were, and now the Arizona Cardinals with 4 games left are kind of picking up the pieces, trying to figure out, how to finish this thing out, and then what's the plan for Kyler Murray and this organization going forward.
Yep, here's the tweet from Kyle Odegaard, friend of the program. We did reach out to Kyle before the show began just to confirm this information additionally, but an MRI confirmed Kyler Murray does indeed have a torn ACL, according to sources. There had been speculation, Bo, last night from a couple of different outlets, but you and I were really kind of holding out hope that things would turn out differently. But, when somebody like Kyle, who's very well connected with the organization, again, friend of our program here, PHNX Cardinals, tweets this out, and then we've gotten, reassuring tweets from Rap Sheet, Adam Schefter and company that this is in fact true. Now we can process it, right? No Kyler Murray. I don't think, anybody's concerned about Kyler Murray coming back in a lost season, but you hit the nail on the head. The fact that the Cardinals and whomever is going to be running the ship, whether it be GM, head coach, whomever, quarterbacks coach, what have you, they're not going to have Kyler Murray, we assume, to start the season next year. How does that change the trajectory of the Arizona Cardinals in their offseason? Does that make it more than likely that Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury will be around, or they won't be? Bo, I know on our post-game, podcast last night, PHNX Cardinals Live post-game with Saul Bookman and Frank Sanders, you thought that it really shouldn't matter and it won't matter. But I've already seen a couple different outlets this morning just say, well, Keim and Kliff, they've bought themselves some time. How could you go into the offseason cleaning house when you've got a quarterback presumably, going to miss potentially September, parts of October? Do you still feel that way? And do you think it's up to Michael Bidwell now to make a clean break and say, okay, we have to reset everything because this is bigger than Kyler Murray. This team was 4-8 with him.
Yeah, this is not the same as the start of this season or going into this season where they said, okay, we made the playoffs, we saw progress. We think that we can replicate the success that this team had to start the season last year. We just need the right dominoes to kind of fall in the right places. And we feel like we have those and the ingredients for that recipe where they didn't. They absolutely didn't. And you don't have that any momentum, call what it was, false momentum going into this season. Now you truly have, you don't have any excuses now. I mean, you have to get back to neutral as an organization. You have to start to build this organization, one with a gigantic quarterback extension. You no longer have the luxury pretty soon of a rookie quarterback contract. And also you don't have the luxury of having a Superman type player that can elevate your roster. Now you can say, yeah, Kyler Murray, he didn't do a lot of that, if any, this season, but we know that he has the ability. He's just not going to be available. So as far as roster building, it needs to be at an absolute premium. I mean, that's got to be what, the Arizona Cardinals focus is building this roster and building it unlike Steve Keim has attempted to in his decade as this Cardinals GM. So I think that this is this gives you the opportunity. Last night was the red wedding for the Arizona Cardinals. Like, you had some of your favorite characters you didn't anticipate getting killed off during this horrendous time. And now the star of the show is down for the count. Now it's time for this organization to say, okay, if we weren't reading the signs correctly before, here they are. It's time to hit it's just as simple. Just hit the detonate button on this organization. Let's start fresh. Let's give Kyler Murray the opportunity from the sidelines to learn a new offense. He doesn't have to go out there and immediately be thrown to the wolves with whoever the next play caller would be for this organization. I think he would benefit from, going through training camp, just studying the entire time, getting that perspective, and then getting to maybe put it forth, at some point, October, November of next season.
Yeah, I want to get to a couple of these comments here. Cardinals update. I was at the game last night, and when he was down, the whole stadium was dead silent. You felt the air leave the building. Absolutely. Mike in the comments says we need to get a decent QB. And listen, while I want Kyler Murray to be the quarterback of this team moving forward, I said it last night. I think everything's on the table, depending on who they make, if they make a change at GM and head coach. Like, we can't be – there should be no surprises that come to anybody and say, well, this can't be an option. Everything has to be an option because what they were doing was not working. But I think, Bo, you and I are in the same mindset of, well, Kyler Murray was a big part of the solution, and hopefully he's part of the solution moving forward. But I think everything changes if they move on from Keim and Kliff, unless Michael Bidwell intervenes. This is picking spreads. Man, Kyler has been one of my favorite players of all time since his high school days. When we drafted Kyler, I had tears of joy. It's just terrible that a player who gets as much hate as him had this happen. Again, yeah, Kyler's been an easy target all offseason, all season. This is an incredibly tough situation, according to Troy, and I agree with this. It could set the franchise back if not handled correctly. Absolutely. And I think that's why you have to be open to everything. Now, I don't want to jump into what's his cap hit, what are the ramifications, what do you need to do? We're going to have conversations about that ad nauseum over the next couple of months, Bo. But he's got his sizable cap hit really doesn't begin until next year and beyond. His contract really hasn't kicked in yet. So there's two ways to look at this. You could say, okay, do a roster reset and make that cap hit more manageable and add talent, which the Cardinals need to do anyway. Or if you were to move off of Kyler Murray at some point, you've got $80+ million in dead cap, but you're also going to be in a position, we assume, to have a top 5 pick. Do you go best player available? Shit, man. Does a new head coach come in and say, I love Will Levis, I love X quarterback? I mean, it's crazy to think about based on the fact that Keim, Kliff, and Kyler were all extended this offseason. But we feel like there's a good chance maybe that 2 of those 3 are going to be jet-setted here in the next month. I think that leaves Kyler Murray a little bit no man's land. That's just my opinion, unless Michael Bidwell says, well, it has to be Adrian Wilson and it has to be Byron Leftwich, and you have to embrace Kyler if you come here, which could very well be the case.
Yeah, I mean, Leftwich and his offensive underachieved just as poorly as Kliff Kingsbury. I know, and that was kind of a duo that was reportedly going to Jacksonville at one point and never came to fruition. I think that I don't envision their top pick being utilized from the Cardinals on a quarterback. Now, is it somebody? Do they trade that pick for a haul of picks to help supplement this poorly built roster? Now we're talking as far as building around Kyler Murray, but I think that Kyler Murray's injury now takes away the safety net for this organization that a lot of people were going off the trapeze with in just carefree, didn't give a shit. Obviously, we've heard from several sources that as far as the GM and the head coach, they were happy-go-lucky for the most part. They didn't have any true fear of losing their positions. But now when you're staring down, a timeline that's longer than just the off season, this is more than likely going to creep in by looking at how poorly the RG3 situation went with Washington, that you can't rush this back. This is something you have to be extremely careful with, especially with the investment that the Arizona Cardinals have made in Kyler Murray. So with that being said, you have the opportunity. Sure, if you don't, does it push away a guy like Sean Payton? Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's a complete deal breaker, but it gives you an opportunity to get Kyler Murray couple him with the next head coach and play caller of this organization, and have him kind of have the ability to learn the offense without having to kind of do it on the fly preseason. He's plays sparingly, doesn't like the preseason, and then try to figure it out the first couple of weeks of the season, and then just the vicious circle that we saw this season continue in the next season, even with a new staff.
Yeah. More comments here. Nightingale Sunset, we talk about cap, but what about player departures? If we're headed for this seller rebuild with our current quarterback out into 2023, do we honestly think players like Hop won't consider it a bit? Well, here's what I will say. If you run it back with Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury, I don't know how that helps you into next season, where you're thinking about going all in with a team that may not have Kyler Murray, and you've got expensive decisions to make anyway. This was already going to be a tough offseason for the Arizona Cardinals because they need to rebuild their interior and defensive line, but then they had limited funds to do it. But I do think that if a new GM and head coach come along and say, well, 2023 is not a lost year, but it's a transition year. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins has a $30 million cap hit, and he is a viable trade piece that you could say, okay, well, DeAndre Hopkins next year, he could certainly help us, but what kind of can we maximize him without Kyler Murray? These are the conversations they're going to have.
Yeah, they're going to have some.
What's the point of keeping Hollywood Brown around, without Kyler Murray, and he's going into his 5th-year option? Those are difficult conversations. That's why I think everybody needs to be prepared for all options to be on the table. I think people hoping that JJ Watt would come back, I think this very much puts an end to that. I think all the veterans on this team that are about to be free agents, or maybe who just signed new deals like James Conner and company, I think everybody should be on watch. Unless your name is like Trey McBride and Majay Sanders and Cameron Thomas, and you make no money and you are a recent draft pick, I think everybody is on not the chopping block, but could question their stability within this organization, Bo. And I think it's a ripple down effect from not only Kyler's injury, but how the season has gone. No one should feel safe.
No, nobody should feel safe. You should look back to 2018 when this team foolishly believed that it was a retool, not a rebuild. Yeah. This is a perfect chance to start to rebuild your roster, legitimately rebuild it, right? And build it the correct way, the correct way. And obviously, you're staring down a future, a very, near future, where you're dealing with that quarterback contract, and you can finagle it around. You can have Kyler move some money around, and I'm sure he's willing to do that, because at the end of the day, he's still going to get paid. But you have to, I know it's a non-contact injury, but it's time to, and it's way overdue. But you look at how poor the offensive line played and who wasn't available. It's time to rebuild that offensive line. That becomes, probably the biggest priority of this organization. And do you start to move some players that are a little bit, longer in the tooth because they're still valuable, they're still assets? Do you acquire draft capital? Do you start to build for the future and mortgage some of those pieces that we're here to win now? Yeah, I absolutely think that's got to be on the table for this Cardinals organization, because otherwise, what are we doing? It's the definition of insanity. We're just spinning our wheels. We're just moving furniture around, and that's just going to leave a potential in the future one season of success, and then another couple seasons of what we've witnessed so far through 2022. It's brutal. So this is an opportunity. This is a wake up call. Not going to say it's a blessing in disguise, because poor Kyler Murray is going to have his knee put under the knife, and he's going to be cut into, and he's going to have to go through the rehab and get back on the field. But this is going to be the organization really having to look at itself and make the proper moves, instead of having this crutch of Kyler Murray can elevate you idea season in, season out.
Nightingale Sunset Brown, meaning Hollywood, might be gone with a new regime, to be honest. We just spent a first rounder on him. I think you have to take that and everything else with the mindset, just like when they drafted Kyler Murray and they gave up picks for Josh Rosen. It's just but in this scenario, we hope that new GM, new head coach, it's just let them, if you trust their vision and you trust Michael Bidwell, and that's a big ask, I know, for a lot of people, to make the right hire, should they move off of Keim and Kliff, equip them with as much cap and resources to build the team the way they want it, to build a winner. And players that we love might be around. They may not be. Cardinals update: Pugh and Hudson are retired. Watt is definitely gone. Beecham might be gone, retired. Byron, Hollywood, Zach Allen need to be re-signed. A lot is going to happen. There's going to be so many moving parts. But the first building or the first domino to fall, Bo Brock, is what happens on January 9th with Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury. What happens right now over the course of the next month? Does Michael Bidwell come out in support of them? Does he stay relatively quiet like he has been? Does he begin to make his short list of potential options at head coach and GM? I do think this takes a hit on big game hunting for a proven head coach. But I also think that it was always a lot to ask of Michael Bidwell to say, go out and lure and, court Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton. And we don't know what other jobs are going to become available. But I don't think, listen, just because you may not have a better chance to get those two right now does not mean you should then run it back. It wasn't Payton or bust. It was, and Bo and I made our list. It was start at the top and work your way down depending on what kind of answers you get. And if you bring in a Sean Payton or a Jim Harbaugh, that's not a 12-month commitment. You're hoping to have that individual around for the next 7 to 10 years. So this is a long play here. We want to get to some more of these comments here. Adrian Wilson becoming our GM would be a dream come true. I think that if they do move off of Steve Keim, Bo, that you can expect strong consideration for both he and Quentin Harris. The Bidwells, and I was chatting with somebody earlier on Twitter about this, the Bidwells have never hired a true external GM. Now, you could say to yourself, well, that's part of the problem, and I would agree with you. But if you're hoping for an internal rise through the ranks for an A-dub, I mean, Michael Bidwell wants to feel comfortable. And if it's either A-dub or Steve Keim right now, Bo, moving forward, I know which one I'm going with.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Here's what I want to ask of the great people in the chat and everybody viewing this video right now. Let's just utilize the like button on this video as it opens up a trap door in Michael Bidwell's office floor that will just get rid of Steve Keim forever. It just opens up and then he's gone. He's out of this organization for the first time in 23 years. Smash that like button if you want to see that happen. Also, sit back with some OGs. It's a tough day. It's never good when your franchise quarterback is done for the year and beyond. Kyler Murray, the MRI revealed the torn ACL. Pop some OGs, relax, and whether you're a sativa fella, if you're an indica person, you want to get into the ratio additions or just a full spectrum, or you need those sleep time gummies. You're going to lose sleep over this. Check out our friends at ogsbrands.com. It's unbelievable what they've got going. All the gummies, all the flavors, tropical, watermelon, raspberry, orange creamsicle, aquaberries, the sleep time gummy. It's great. It's a great stocking stuffer for you. You can go become a part of their family. You can get updates on all the new OG's products and deals going on if you sign up for their email list. But most importantly, check them out on their website, ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZbrands.com. And also check them out on Instagram at OG's Brands. You can also follow them. You can also find them in your local dispensary. Got to be 21 years or older. Also, it's a great day. And I'm always, when times are tough, some day drinking. Sometimes it's go down to your watering hole and make it Four Peaks, because you can get yourself some great food. You can actually find yourself getting into the holiday spirit, because at Four Peaks, you can give the gift of beer this holiday season. Four Peaks still has limited supplies of their December Advent Calendar box. You know what's great about this? We're sitting here on December 13th. You can actually catch up on this Advent Calendar. You've got to get back to neutral there. So for $55, you can enjoy these specialty beers, tall boys, and more. You can have like 1 or 2 nights where you're popping a couple of these to just get back to where you're supposed to be as far as the Advent Calendar. Give the gift of beer this season to your friends or family, or even yourself. At Four Peaks, you can purchase 8th Street Pub in Tempe. Got to be 21 years or older.
I don't know if you dabble on the Football Power Index at oldespn.com, but take a guess, Bo, if you haven't seen this already, where the Cardinals currently stand on the Football Power Index.
Are 28, 29?
They are last. They are now last, below the Houston Texans on the ESPN Football Power Index. And if I'm Michael Bidwell and I see the trajectory of this team right now with Keim and Kliff, I have no confidence that I could roll back this roster with these two involved and say, Kyler Murray, he's ready in October. Let's plug and play on a team that's 1-5 or 2-4 or whatever it is. So I love that mindset of you go through the offseason, you bring in new people, you let Kyler get back to being Kyler, you let him study up, hopefully, on the playbook, you let him ingratiate himself with the new coach, and you have basically a Corvette for him to take over at some point whenever he's healthy. They just need good players. Like, it's cliche to say, we're trending toward a top 5, maybe a top 3 draft pick, Bo. And it's like, you got people asking, do you want Jalen Carter? You want Will Anderson? You want to trade back? You take a quarterback? I want hits. It's been so long since this franchise has played the hits in the first round. Everything else will take care of itself, because a need yesterday may not be a need, tomorrow. And, you feel good about a position unit. It may go up in flames next week. So the Cardinals just need to get back to hitting some doubles, an occasional home run in the draft. And that has to start with new leadership at the top.
Yeah, they need somebody that can find impact players, because we're just not seeing enough of them consistently. Like, Steve Keim hit on Kyler Murray, and that's it. Say what we saw the pick from Isaiah Simmons. It's nice. He makes a couple plays a game. But as far as on a down-to-down basis, him, Zaven Collins, DJ Humphries, they're fine players, right? But you're seeing franchises every couple of years hit on impact makers, Pro Bowl type guys. And Steve Keim, really, on his resume, has 2 of those for the most part. He's got Budda Baker and he's got Kyler Murray. Outside of that, it's been mostly to be a trade. And that's not, especially with Kyler Murray's contract going forward, you're not going to have that luxury any longer. You have to hit and build through the draft. And you're going to have the opportunity just by having a high pick to hopefully not swing and miss as badly as he has. But you can't let him make this pick any longer. It's well overdue. And, if you get a quarterback hungry team in there and they want to trade you more assets, that's fine. As long as it's not Keim. As long as it's not Keim making the decision, because what's the point of giving him more draft capital?
Yeah, and you got to weigh it too. If Jalen Carter projects as, Warren Sapp, if Will Anderson is Khalil Mack, I think this team can't be in a position, and I think you get fooled into this with Keim and Michael Bidwell saying, we're a year away. How about let things take care of itself? You may be able to compete for the postseason next year, but don't go all in with your draft mindset like that. You should just say, hey, we think this guy's a blue chip Hall of Fame player. We're going to take him, and not water down the approach of going from 3 to like 10 because you got a couple additional picks. You have to weigh all of that, and good general managers do that, and good head coaches coaching them up and develop. And that's been the biggest disconnect, because when this team was humming with Bruce Arians, he elevated. Todd Bowles elevated, right? Kliff Kingsbury does not elevate. And right now, Steve Keim is not giving him, the pieces to be able just to say, these are plug and play. You don't even have to elevate them. They're ready to go. So it's twofold. It's compounded like that. When I get to some more of these comments here, K1 saying, hire DeMeco Ryans now that Harbaugh and Peyton are probably off the table. It's a name Bo and I really like. You can get them weak in a division rival. And I think it speaks to what we saw from this team last night. I mean, this team is not tough on the line of scrimmage. You have to get this franchise has to get back to basics. They added a bunch of, hot rod wide receivers, and they said, we're going to go up and down the field. We're going to score a bunch of points. Well, number one, you're not scoring anything. Your players like Hollywood and Rondell Moore are getting injured because they're undersized. Your undersized quarterback is now out with a torn ACL. I mean, can we get back to some bully football, please? Can we assert our dominance on some teams? This team is a microcosm of this Cardinal franchise right now. Unfortunately, that is soft, Bo.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be softer than dog shit the rest of the season. I mean, for the next 4 games,
yes.
It's just, we're just going to kind of, what's the
rooting for young players to do well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the meme of from Narcos, where you got Pablo Escobar standing around waiting, and it's just like just waiting for the last 4 games of the season to be over so we can actually get to something interesting, and everybody's hopeful wishes are granted as far as real change, real foundational change for this organization, so it can kind of dig itself out of this hole. I mean, there's been a couple. You've got the quarterback for the first time in your franchise's history. You've got a young quarterback, and you have to be like real prudent and solid with your path for him back to the playing field. But at the same time, this team, you can't throw Kyler Murray. Like, it would be irresponsible to throw Kyler Murray back onto the playing field once his knee is surgically repaired and healthy again behind that offensive line. You just can't do it. It would be like the Cardinals, whoever, Michael Bidwell should be thrown in jail for that, for endangering Kyler Murray's life.
I'm going to tell you right now, Bang GX, do you think we draft a QB later in the draft? I think everything's on the table. I think a first-round quarterback's on the table. I think a day 2 quarterbacks picks on the table if they move off of Keim and Kliff.
I don't have a problem drafting a quarterback every draft. I don't think there's so many holes on this roster. You don't go Philly and take a guy in the second round when you've got a quarterback on your roster. I know that's worked out for them, but as far as first, second, third round, you're going to have some high picks. You're really going to have to utilize that to fill some holes, get some impact makers.
I agree with you, but what if Michael Bidwell loves a candidate, but the candidate does not necessarily want to commit to Kyler Murray long term?
He's not a candidate then. He's not a candidate in my opinion. I know you just.
What about I can't? I'm going to bank my career on Kyler Murray coming back healthy. I have to. That's a hope and a prayer. That's not in my control. You just let things play out.
I mean, look, the ACLs for the most part, they've figured it out as far as how to get guys back and back at the. I mean, we saw Joe Burrow come back at a timeline that is absurd, and he led his team to a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to happen, but what I am going to say is like it's not going to deter a candidate more so than the candidate not liking Kyler Murray more so overall as a quarterback prospect. And if that comes up in the meeting, I would hope that this organization is like, well, we invested in him. We believed in him. If you don't, you're just not for us. We got to find the right guy. We can't have a Brian Flores situation. I know that Kyler Murray is a polarizing figure as far as this fan base, more so than he's ever been. But this organization believed in him, and I can't understand why they would change. I know it's been a tough season, but what you imagine and envision his ceiling being. I mean, the pivot off of him at this point is crazy.
Well, I'm not saying pivot, but I think Tanner Morris puts it well. And we're not talking red shirt like punting on the playoffs next year, but no one is interviewing with Arizona if they don't want Kyler Murray. And then if anything, Kyler's injury gives a head coach a red shirt year. I agree with that. I think Michael Bidwell can hire a new GM, a head coach, and just say, guys, take as much time as you need. There's the margin for error is significant. You're not expected to be thrust. Like a week ago, Bo and I were sitting here saying the next head coach needs to have expectations of making the playoffs next year. And while we hope that happens somehow, we can't realistically say that. We can say growth and development and young players finding their niche. I mean, hopefully having a season by comparison to what we're seeing from Washington or Detroit. Look at Minnesota and Detroit. They fired their GM and their head coach. They brought in new regimes. In Minnesota's case, they had the same quarterback now not coming off injury, but a polarizing figure in Kirk Cousins, and it changed everything. Minnesota is a top seed in the NFC. Cardinals have to think like that. And they also have to think of the mindset. I disagree with a lot of, I don't think this quarterback class is exceptionally strong. I think we're going to have guys overdrafted. There's nobody like Caleb Williams in this class. Now, we could see people emerge during the draft process, but I think we get some positive signs from Kyler Murray being on schedule over the course of the offseason, and you're going to be able to say, okay, I feel good about this. I can roll with a Jacoby Brissett type of player to begin next season, or Colt McCoy, or whomever the new coach GM wants to roll with. But I know Kyler Murray is going to come back and be healthy and succeed with us. But Bo, I do want to pose this question to you. So the Cardinals run a very specific kind of offense with Kyler Murray, and that was in part to take advantage of his skill set and the fact that he's undersized, and they don't feel like right now he can be under center. Does any of that come into play with a new head coach, with a new GM, where you're basically having to build your team around Kyler Murray, who's out for the year with a torn ACL? Doesn't that be a little bit troublesome for new leadership?
No, I mean, you try to find somebody that's going to be able to maximize Kyler Murray, because I mean, I love the idea of who we envision as the building blocks of this organization, but there's the biggest key, the biggest building block is K1. And there's more than enough offenses out there that he can run and run efficiently and hopefully be a step up from what Kingsbury's offense has especially been this season. And to where we can get to see that MVP caliber style from Kyler Murray. I don't think that it's going to be a big deterrent. No, for especially, I mean, when you think about it, and I love the point about it being a red shirt year because it's going to be so important because outside of Harbaugh, outside of Sean Payton and whoever's, Frank Reichs and guys who have experience, you're going to get another unknown potentially. You're going to get a hot coordinator like a D'Amico Ryans, like the OC for Philly, or a Callahan from Cincinnati, or Kellen Moore, whoever it may be, somebody without head coaching experience. So you get that coach with the luxury of taking his lumps and learning how to be a head coach without true pressure of, hey, this team has to get back to the playoffs or it's a bust year. It gets back to, it's not like, because I think you and I were in lockstep as far as believing, hey, they got to get somebody with that experience, not somebody that has to learn how to be a head coach. You got to get the guy that knows how to be a head coach already in Harbaugh and Payton. And I just don't think, that's an option any longer. I just think it's a Hail Mary at this point that you could get one of those guys.
Yeah, and Brian in the chat, I agree. You need a Salah-esque, whether it's on the offense or defensive side of the ball, that it's a leader of men that can command the locker room.
Yeah.
You need a GM that can just draft good players, and you need a head coach that can lead this team without Kyler Murray and then eventually with Kyler Murray, and have Kyler Murray, of course, be a big factor, but not everything. And it too many times, and we talked about it on the PHNX Tailgate pregame show yesterday, it's just like Kliff Kingsbury's motto with Steve Keim is just, let's just try to out-athlete everybody. We've got Hopkins and Hollywood and Trey McBride and Zach Ertz once upon a time and Kyler Murray. Scheme takes a back seat. And we need this franchise this offseason should really be about, Bo, if we have a title card or a slogan, needs to be back to basics. This franchise needs to get back to basics, drafting and developing, putting together a sustainable winner. You look at San Francisco, as much as I hate that fucking franchise, they put together an infrastructure that supports Trey Lance, that supports Jimmy Garoppolo, that supports Brock Purdy. They churn out head coaching candidates, Mike McDaniel, now D'Amico Ryan, Robert Saleh. Cardinals don't do that. Cardinals need to stop cutting corners and put together a sustainable organizational franchise of just every year we're going to compete. We may not contend, but we're improving. We know who we are. We have an identity. The identity with Kliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim's Cardinals is not very good. Right.
No, I mean, we've seen it so far that if you don't take from the NFL brotherhood, that if you have an outsider, as unorthodox of a hire as Kliff Kingsbury, it really sets you up it really makes things hard. I mean, as far as nothing's easy with this organization because Kliff Kingsbury, sure, he played for the Patriots. He was on Belichick's coaching staff as like a quality control guy, but he didn't have like those true relationships that you need. Like when you see McDaniel exit San Francisco to Miami, he brings a couple guys with him. He's got friends all around the league. All of those guys were part of the Mike Shanahan Washington coaching staff. It's like Kliff didn't have any of that. Like if you go with a D'Amico Ryans, you're sure as shit going to probably get somebody from, San Francisco or his time in Philly as a player or his time in Houston as a player. Like he has relationships and is respected around the league where they just haven't had that for 4 seasons now. Like Kliff has tried to develop those, but it just hasn't. Like what relationship can you think of that exists that Kliff Kingsbury has developed in this league?
Yeah. Anish making a good comment. We hate the Niners, but we got to learn from them. Learn from a franchise that has Super Bowls. What do the Cardinals have?
Still their DC, for God's sake. Take him right now.
Absolutely. They interviewed him 2018. Michael Bidwell sat in a room with D'Amico Ryans, just thought he was too young at the time. Knowing Bidwell, he might promote Keim to a different position. As long as he's not picking the players, I mean, shit, he can be the janitor for all I care. Random thought. But thank you guys for having this space. It was so needed for this fan base. You guys are badasses. Well, thank you, Mike. This is why we do it. I want everybody, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast. This is going to be therapy over the course of the offseason. We will hold this team accountable. We will rebuild together. But my comments like that are why we do it. So we appreciate you, brother. We also appreciate you dabbling on the Game Time app. Listen, if you're already on the fence about going to the Christmas Day game against Todd Bowles and company with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I can bet you that the tickets on Game Time are going to be the cheapest that you can find anywhere. So if you want to take your family for a little outing, watch Colt McCoy and the Cardinals try their darndest against the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, dabble on the Game Time app. We love it. Save up to 60% on tickets when you buy last minute. I can tell from personal experience, friends, family, it is the cheapest option for third-party tickets, especially no egregious service fees, upcharges, only premium seating for you and your family on the Game Time app. And but we dabbled on the Underdog Fantasy app yesterday. We love doing it. Same day fantasy. We took the L. I did to Shane Diefenbach, Saul Bookman, and I did. It was not a good day. I had Ramondre Stevenson. He got out. I had Devontae Parker. He got out. It was basically like who survived that game with healthy players. Shano had Mac Jones and a couple of kickers, so he won by default. But the best part is,
God,
I can rebuild, and because we love daily fantasy. Bo and I are off year-long fantasy. We're on daily fantasy via Underdog Fantasy. You can draft your team against up to 5 of your friends. The highest scoring squad of the night wins that cold hard cash. The minimum you can deposit is $3. Play $3 against your buddies. The win takes it home. Draft 6 NBA players. No positional limits. That is it. It's fantastic. But what you got to do, you got to go to UnderdogFantasy.com and you got to use the promo code PHNX. And guess what? Underdog Fantasy is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Again, sign up for Underdog Fantasy using the promo code PHNX and receive a deposit match up to $100. It's great using Underdog Fantasy, especially, we're in the down time of the year where this team's not punching their ticket to the postseason. So instead, make a little money, have some fun on Underdog Fantasy. You will not be sorry that you did. And unlike year-long fantasy, it does not end after the regular season. Postseason and beyond is where you want to be with Underdog Fantasy, Bo.
I bought insurance yesterday on the pick'em and it still didn't save me. It was it was a rough night. It was a rough night because I was anticipating an offense with Kyler Murray at the helm, and I got Colt McCoy for the entire game outside of 3 plays. So brutal, but look, we march on as far as Underdog Fantasies, and we're going to get back in the game, no doubt about it, because we can play tonight. I can get some of that sweet NBA action, and I can't wait. And I can't wait to really get after this offseason. Once we get through this throw up where this quarterback matchup potentially that makes me nauseous of Brett Rippon and Colt McCoy on Sunday.
Hang on. Russell Wilson has not been completely ruled out.
Nano bubbles back? Is he using those nano bubbles?
So. He's using
healing his mind.
Our buddy Hackett that, maybe can do us some favors this weekend. Hackett is saying that Russell Wilson is day to day. He is still kind of hovering around. They haven't made any decisions yet.
Are we like the one saving grace for this season was, and it's should always be of a Cardinals fan, is like, hey, we get to watch Kyler Murray play. Now that that's gone, I was so against, hey, this team needs to lose out. They need brutal. Now it's just like, okay, let's see it. Tank, you're just go.
Embracing the tank.
I'm full tank girl on this. I'm all about it. Right?
Here's what I'll say. Kliff Kingsbury, with the better, I think, roster last night, was outcoached by Bill Belichick, and it was pretty obvious. If he gets outcoached by Nathaniel Hackett, if you're Michael Bidwell, what do you even say to that? Because you're going to have Colt McCoy, who the team has confidence in. They've won games with him. You've got full complement of offensive weapons. Shit, Rondell Moore, the glass man, he could be back this week. If it's ugly in Denver this weekend, I don't know. For his
come back and play in that thin air after not playing for practicing the last couple of weeks. No chance.
I mean, even need to take, according to Mike, they just stink. That's true too.
I mean,
they try.
1-12 for the last 13 home games.
See, that to me, and we talked about it, is the bigger factor over everything else. If I'm Michael Bidwell, you have to re-earn the trust of the Valley and the fan base.
You tweeted this out. You tweeted out Troy Aikman calling this a dumpster fire. Troy Aikman is sick of watching Cardinals play on primetime and Monday. He's called them now on shitty Thursday night games. Now he's calling them on Monday night games. He had 2 of them this year. The 2 games that they played on Monday Night Football this season should be enough as well. Like there are so many things you can point to and failures of this team, this coaching staff and front office that point to change. If there's no change, I just don't. I think we probably have to like chain ourselves up to the facility in Tempe and start like it's like rioting and not rioting. I'm sorry.
I told Saul, yeah, we know what you meant. I told Saul we got to pull Greg Schiano with the University of Tennessee. But poor Greg Schiano didn't do anything wrong. He just got hired, and the fan base is like,
Right.
no, we're not going to stand for this. And so they moved off of him. But the proof is, Kliff Kingsbury, we have your record. You're a terrible late season coach. You guys can't win at home. Please do something different. Please do something different, Michael.
Sunday's the last winnable game, right?
No, I'm Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. I know you told me they're not going to go cross country and win. Marcus Mariota like quit the team. Did you see that this morning?
Yeah.
Like just up and left the franchise. So we'll see. Arthur Smith probably pull out his bag of tricks. Put Cordero Patterson at Wildcat quarterback that game. Let's see if Vance can stop it. I guarantee if it's a screen pass, he can't stop it.
No.
Marky Mark in the chat, I'd imagine Kyler starts the year on IR and gets activated after week 4. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Shit, the season's 17 games. I mean, he missed a couple games these last couple of years. So, I mean, what's the big deal if he misses a couple games to start next year? Just make sure he's healthy. Don't rush him back. You know who will rush him back? Keim and Kliff, because they're going to need to save their jobs, and they're going to need, like, what do you do if you're Michael Bidwell and this team's 0-4 and there's we got to get Kyler out there? That's what I'm afraid would happen if you kept them around.
I just can't imagine 9 months of an off season with the status quo.
Deal with that.
No, this is it.
Bo called me on my drive home last night, and Bo told me that he thinks that this is it. That the last night's game was the tipping point.
I
still see people around national media saying that it could buy them some time.
For what? To do what?
Do some hanging? To do some backwards hat hanging outside an RV?
I mean, I understand. I know what people are going to say as far as Bidwell, the relationship with Keim and the extensions, but there's nothing. There's no redeeming part of this season, and you can point to injuries, but this team just did not compete. It was 4-8. Kyler had 3 wins. And he had 7 losses, didn't he? I mean, that's just not getting it done. And to not be able to win in front of your home fans and to have New England fans going crazy in your house last night. I mean, that's enough to make the move. I just can't imagine that an owner who can look at the media in the face and say, I'm holding myself accountable. I truly want to win. I'll do whatever it takes to win. And can sleep well at night. Like I don't imagine that. I mean that's sociopathic at that point, right?
I respect the Bidwell family. If Michael Bidwell runs it back, then he is equal now to his dad, Bill. And Bill, rest in peace, Bill was not a great owner and made a lot of let's call it questionable decisions. And I've always defended Michael. Got the stadium built. Got this team to a Super Bowl, has hired some good people, right? And has done some really, really good things, especially in the community in Arizona. But if Michael Bidwell opts to keep this same regime in-house for next year, then you're going to see a lot of people, myself included, who are ready to jump ship because he's fallen into the same habits his dad did. And he's watched his dad make mistakes. So that's why he's become so pro player, and I applaud him for that. But the hardest thing we can speculate about draft rumors, and we can talk about when Kyler returns and who's coming back. And really, I can put Kliff aside too. The biggest shoe to fall is, does he have the stones to fire Steve Keim? And everything else, the domino effects will take care of itself. New team, new roster, maybe new uniforms, right? New draft picks, Kyler Murray, don't rush back. Keim has to be gone for all of that to be enabled.
If people haven't seen it, you got to check it out at Johnny Venerable on Twitter. It was our friend over at K1 since day one, right? He uncovered
I have no idea where he got it.
This video. I asked him. I haven't heard back from him. Left me on red. But look, there's a video out there. This is how delusional Keim is, and I hope that it doesn't go up to Bidwell. But it's certainly possible that I'm paraphrasing. He's telling whoever's interviewing him that you can't get close to people you work with, because it takes away the accountability. And you're sitting there like saying, yeah, no shit, dude. Like, but this is what the brain trust of the organization is moving forward on. Just the fact that you guys are buddies, because it isn't based on success. It isn't based on resume. That there is a video out there where Steve Keim is saying that. I can't believe it that it's coming from his mouth after what we've witnessed, just covering this team, following this team, and watching it closely on Hard Knocks to see that relationship, and then that to have uttered those words.
And that's why shows like this, and I'm not, tooting our horn, are so important to give everybody a voice, because we have to be vocal with our voice. We have to use our voice and say we support this franchise, but we don't support these decisions. Yeah, Eno Benjamin was cut today, so re-sign Eno.
No. I think we know who Eno Benjamin is at this point.
Yeah.
It's like I want the Morgan Freeman voice. It's like all the Arizona Cardinals fans out there that said you're going to regret cutting Eno Benjamin. Is like the Cardinals did not regret cutting.
Now,
Eno.
well, let's see if he
didn't even get on the fucking field on the worst team in the league.
Houston. Let's see if he went to like a Kansas City or something. Let's wait and see. Why haven't we?
If he went to Kansas City, the best team in the league.
Yeah,
he can't play. He can't hang on the Cardinals and the Texans, but he's going to go and he's going to be a stud.
Eno didn't do anything wrong. Brian,
it's not on Eno. It's just come on, guys. Eno Benjamin,
hate Eno and ASU and all things.
It's just it's not Eno's fault that his coach was hyperbolizing. His role is saying he could be RB1, and people are like, "Well, I saw him play well in the Pac-12, and I like him, so it's got to be true."
He was good against the Saints. Brian asking, "Why haven't we heard from Bidwell, Bo? Where is he?"
He showed his face for the Zach Ertz, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee press conference. He spoke for 2 minutes and then dipped. I think he knows he doesn't want to face the music just yet. Hopefully we see. Here's all I care about. Black Monday. He's at a podium and he's talking about this team and its search for a new GM and head coach.
Can you imagine if Keim and Kliff are retained and Michael and Steve? Michael probably wouldn't be there, but Steve and Kliff have that press conference. Oh my God, what it would be like. As Cardinal update saying, Bo better come with the heat in the press conference.
Here's what I'll say, though. The last time this happened, Steve Wilkes was one and done as a head coach, and they went up there, Bidwell and Keim, and they said, hey, we made this mistake. We take the responsibility of that. We take all the accountabilities on us. We're going to hold ourselves accountable. And then they barely took any questions that press conference. Like I would say they took max 4 questions. They weren't up there for 10 minutes. So I don't know, like the media can't even do their job at that point. Like, I mean, unless you
because that presser is going to be live streamed if and when that ever happens. Mm-hmm. So you're going to hear questions or not that come from the media. And my man Bo asks questions, and so does our guy Howard Balzer and Weinfuss over at ESPN. Like, this, we got no dog in this fight to protect anybody. We're in the supporting business. We support the Cardinals. We want them to do well. Please God, let it happen. But we're not this is not an enabling podcast. This is not an enabling company. Everybody from Coyotes to Suns, and go look at what's going on the Suns show right now. The fact that team's in a little bit of disarray. Go watch every podcast and I would encourage you, of the Coyotes as they go through the rebuild and everything that's gone on with their stadium. Like, part of the reason I think PHNX is a cut above, it's not just because I work here. It's because we can have objective conversations. Like, we love this team, gut it down to the studs, and start over in a lot of different ways, Bo.
Yeah. Let's say this one last time before we get out of here. If you want Kliff or Keim gone, just use the like button as the fire them button here on the podcast. We'll use that for you guys. Kliff Kingsbury is going to talk to the media here. I'm going to run over the facility here at 1:30. He'll give us more as far as Kyler Murray, maybe a timetable, and what the next couple weeks look like.
I want to remind everybody, dabble on DraftKings. I did last night, took the live under. It did not work out for me very well. Scoop and score touchdown, but you can dabble on DraftKings. Same game parlays, fast, easy payouts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code PHNX. All you got to do, maybe not on the Cardinals game, but place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game. Not the not the spread, mind you, but just the money line bet to win their game, and you get $150 back in free bets if they do that. It's only on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Yeah. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
The GM journey. Was it Les Snead he was talking with? It looked like Les Snead. I'm not sure. But the GM journey podcast, apparently.
Will people ask Kliff if he's worried about his job today? Do you think that's a question that gets asked today?
No, I don't think so. With, one of his mentors passing away, Mike Leach, last night, losing his franchise quarterback to a season ending, I think it would, I know people want to hold this team accountable. There's going to be time for that. It's just this is going to be a pretty somber press conference.
And we do want to emphasize too, like I think Bo and I expect some changes. We don't expect those changes to happen during the season.
Yep.
What were you trying to do? You could have given the team to Vance Joseph after the bye. They didn't do that. Keim can't dabble too much into the roster over these next couple of weeks. So you're not setting the team up for failure for the next regime, Bo.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want to put, the players who've done everything right this season in a position for the next 4 seasons, to just go out in the worst way possible and also get in harm's way. Like, this roster is in such rough shape that it could be dangerous, to where just try to get out as healthy as possible and finish the season. And, I don't think people are concerned about wins and losses at this point, just getting through there. Appreciate everybody with the insight on that interview. Yeah. Thomas Dimitroff, apparently, of former Falcons GM. So
I want to remind everybody, keep it locked in to GoPHNX.com. Our guy Howard Balzer has fantastic work right now. Promo code Howard on all things Arizona Cardinals Insight. He and Bo were at the stadium yesterday. Become a PHNX diehard. You get access to our premium diehard level content, 20% off all the merch, free shirt and or hat every year. It's not a one-off. It's every year. Go dabble on the PHNX merchandise locker. Pick up some French gear. As you can see, we're rocking today. Bo and I delayed the PHNX holiday party to come and hang with all of you because, listen, this is our priority. You guys are our priority. Cardinals need to get this thing right, and it starts now. For Bo Brock, I'm Johnny Venerable. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. We're back at it tomorrow. Double Dip Wednesday show at 4 p.m. And then, of course, Hard Knocks returns. It's Hard Knocks After Dark. Good hell. What will that have in store? We'll see you then.